What are you doing? Huh? What you doing? Yeah, that's okay. You can walk on the floor. You're not gonna hurt it. Yeah, big baby. So this is the rest of the floor. So wanted to kind of give the effect of a boardwalk. So we wound up having the people that helped me get this done put a heavy coat on the sealer, right, and then overlap. And the idea behind that was to give the effect that if you've ever seen a real boardwalk made out of wood, you get sea spray on it, and it'll have this kind of puddling effect of the ocean sea spray where it gets on the floor and it winds up causing a lighter hue to the boardwalk, gets on the boardwalk, right? So that's what we tried to achieve. Come pretty close. I don't mind. Could have been a little better, but you know, hindsight's 2020. Probably would sponge it on if I were to do, you know, or do this again, or have people help me do this again. Use a sponge to spread that out. We used a pad. Excuse me, can't talk today. So a pad was used to overlap that and get that effect. So also, if you're working with the Bona natural sealer, you're going to have an issue, in my opinion, if you have a lot of clumping in the material. And if that's the case, where you have a lot of clumping of the material after you strain it, then that's probably product that's either old or has been frozen. So that's kind of how we stumbled across this look, to tell you the truth. So as the guys were putting down that stuff on the sealer, we had a last gallon that was laid down and used, and it was full of clumpy material that was strained out, and come to find out, that's a bad thing. So if you're using the natural sealer and you got a lot of clumpiness in it, don't use it. But anyway, you just take a situation that would have required a complete redoing of the floor, and you work with it. So that's pretty much what happened. And I don't mind, you know, I don't mind. It's kind of funny because I did want to give a little bit of a different character. Have this floor have different character than the floor in the bedrooms, right? Because these just, in the prior video, you can see how they turned out. They're really nice and even in the texture. There's a little bit of variance in it, but it's not as drastic as it is when you come out here. So I had to change gears on this floor, which is okay, because doing a marine type of a coastal thing in the house anyway. So long story short, everything happens for a reason, and this is what we got. So this is how it turned out. Overlapping with the I would highly recommend using a T-bar to do any work with the Bona. Okay, we used a pad with this, and the pad wound up leaving some overlap because it was not forgiving, because that last batch, like I said, the last gallon was not good product in my opinion. There's something wrong with it. So long story short, to me, if you've ever been on a real boardwalk made out of real wood, the sea spray actually comes on from the ocean and gets on the boardwalk, and it causes this graying effect, and the salt dries on the wood and it causes this effect. So I said, you know, to the guys, I said, let's work with that. Let's take it and run with it. Otherwise, we would have had to take this floor completely down with a drum sander, and that would have taken a lot more time, and I was not willing to do that time-wise. So also, I would highly recommend on the Bona, working with that, I would go thin. That's just my 2 cents. I'm sure everybody's got their opinion, but if you've worked with it, you know how it is. So I've worked with it. So anyway, this is where we're at. So wanted to put some age marks in the floor. I did not want to use the iron oxide to cover those up like I did in the prior floors in the bedrooms. So I left these exposed because I need to throw the eye off from the overlap marks that were showing through from the bad, the last coat of bad sealer. And took sander, had the guys take sander, take that down a little bit where the overlap marks were showing, and take it down so it wasn't so bad. But you got a lot of variance in this floor, which is okay. I mean, from that point forward, hey, let's make this floor really have a lot of contrast in it, because we've got to take the eye off of these areas where you can see the overlaps. It's all good. It's all good. It's fine with me. So this is how it turned out. I got to go through, work a little bit more on the floor. Do a little bit more work on the floor, and then have some guys come in and do some help me with some of this stuff too. Got a little more work to do on the floor, some epoxying. You see, some stuff has to get filled still. So I'll go back in, like for instance this one, the spot here. We wanted to have that exposure, but we'll go in and lightly sand that, and I'll fill that in with epoxy and take it down and make it smooth. Which is okay, adding character to the floor. So, this is how she turned out. You know, of course, once you get your furniture in and your rugs on the floor, it'll all work. And that's how it is. So I get the people done finishing the entire floor, and the helpers that I got helping me get all that done. Do a final walkthrough on this, but this is where we're at right now. Let's go against the glare. Let's go with the glare of the sun contrast here and show you. All right, Bona Natural sealer, and Bona Natural traffic. If I were to do this again, I wouldn't do the sealer. I'd just do the traffic. I'd do some test boards. Highly recommend doing some test boards. This floor, we used the Apex floor sealer. In the bedroom floors, we did not. And with the Apex floor sealer, I'll try and show you what we got. Is this. The one thing I didn't like about that, sealing the floor with a black Apex, is it was really hard to clean that after you sanded it, because that's black, that's ebony. Really hard to get all the black soot off the floor so it doesn't wind up getting into the finish. So it's a lot of work to clean up after you're done sanding. So hindsight, future, even though it is faster, we had the machine sand this floor because I got hurt in a wreck. I can't be on my knees, hands and knees, working on this floor like I did the other bedroom floors. So in the bedroom, right, there was no machine sanding. It's all hand plane, hand sanded, and there was no Apex or no floor filler. I used epoxy. So that's the way to go if you want your floor, in my opinion, to look better. I would forego the floor filler, all of it, right? And I would use marine grade epoxy or bar coat, right? Bar coat is going to take longer to set up, but it's not so smelly. And fill all your knots and cracks with the bar coat. Allow that to sit 3 days and cure, and then you go back and you got to do that 3 times. So you're looking at 9 days just to fill in, and maybe one more rotation to fill in all your knots and cracks. But that, in my opinion, was a lot better, in my opinion, than just slopping the floor filler in and sanding it off. I really think it turned out better that way. Just my 2 cents. So the way to go, if you're going to do this, is to hand sand your floor, hand plane it, epoxy fill it, clean the hell out of it, and then very, very, very light. If you're going to use the sealer, natural, very light coat. I mean super light. As thin as you can get it, sealer, one coat. And then go back in and T-bar in your traffic natural, okay? If you're looking for the effect that we accidentally stumbled across out here, that's a nice way to put it, right? Then you're going to have to basically, I guess, to recreate a bad batch that didn't clear, in my opinion, you're going to have to go really thick and overlap, really thick on the sealer. But I would, if I were to do that, I would do it by hand with a sponge. Okay, so if you want to drop in this contrast where you got these lines in the floor and you're trying to create puddles and you're trying to create a dried salt effect on the floor, use a wool sponge. You can buy a wool sponge covered with wool down at the auto parts store, and that's the way I would recommend doing it. So, and then wrap that up with a 2 to 3 coats of Traffic Natural. So there we go. When I get all done with getting the help I need to get the rest of this flooring done with the trim and the got to do some work here on the around the fireplace here. I'm going to replace some of the tile. And anyway, when I get all done with that, I'll do another video when everything's done, so complete. So, all right, over and out. Hopefully that helps some people out. So the prior video in the back rooms were that was 2 coats of traffic on top of 2 coats of sealer, natural, right? So this is 2 coats of traffic, 2 coats of sealer. Underneath that, and all the knots and holes and cracks were filled with bar coat, right? Okay, and the no sanding between coats. Did not sand between coats. I didn't want sanding grit in the finish. And yes, you can vacuum it, wipe it down all you want. You still get some grit in the finish. And that's how this one went. So as far as the smooth and even looking finish itself, this back bedroom's turned out better. So if you're going to do this, go that route. This is the bar coat that I use, glaze coat, on these bedroom floors. So this takes 3 days to cure, and then it sinks, and you got to do it 3 or 4 times. So if you want to speed up that process, you want to go ahead and go down to the hardware store and buy yourself some marine grade Evercoat. This stuff stinks terrible, but it'll set up in about 45 minutes when you're filling your holes and knots. So me, if I were to do this all over again, I would forego using the floor filler to trowel that out and fill the knots. I would not use floor filler. I would use the epoxy. Okay, so hopefully somebody gets some entertainment out of this. Alrighty, let's go one more walk through. I'm just rambling because I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can add in here, right, of what I would recommend. So so the idea here was to kind of make it the floor look aged, make it kind of look like a boardwalk that's been wore out a little bit from people walking on it, and it's got sea salt on it from the spray from the ocean on it, and it's been repaired a couple times, and that's kind of what we're going for here. This is the Corlux again. Set the fridge down inside with the Corlux in case there's ever a leak in the fridge. This will all be sealed around the perimeter with silicone. So it kind of made like a little bathtub in here. If this ever leaks, there'll be a water detector behind there. The water detector let me know before it can get to the flooring and get under it and cause a problem. So highly recommend doing that. Basically making a small pan underneath anything that you got in the home that's going to leak, or put a pan under it. that could possibly leak. So. And it gives some contrast. So if you look at how the walls are with this place, right? How they're stepped. So we stepped that floor out to kind of give a little bit of contrast there. And between there and there you have the contrast, but then you match it up again with the Corlux, right? Steps through. So there it is.